During World War II, a German fighter pilot found himself in a dilemma when he came upon a damaged American bomber. What would you do if you were faced with a similar choice? Would you follow your orders or follow your conscience? To fully understand the gravity of this incident, it's important to know a bit about the larger context of World War II. The aftermath of World War I left Europe in turmoil. The victors, including Britain, France, and the United States, emerged from the conflict with their power and influence greatly increased. However, the once mighty Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, were left reeling from the devastation of war. The map of Europe was redrawn, and new nations were born out of the ruins of empires. It was a time of great change, with far-reaching consequences. Meanwhile, the Bolshevik uprising in 1917 birthed the Soviet Union, further altering the power dynamics. Just as the dust settled, the League of Nations emerged as a beacon of hope. Conceived in 1920 at the Paris Peace Conference, it vowed to prevent future wars. It aimed to foster cooperation and collective security between nations and prevent conflicts through negotiation and arbitration. The League also sought to reduce the buildup of military power through disarmament, in the hopes of creating a more peaceful world, but it was just a matter of little time before this noble goal would be put to a test. Beneath the surface of post-war calmness, a storm brewed. Pacifism clashed with rising nationalistic desire across Europe. Germany, devastated by the Treaty of Versailles, harbored resentment and bitterness. The seeds of discontent were sown, and a new storm was brewing. In this climate of rising nationalism, the League faced a major test of its mission. The once mighty German Empire fell in the wave of this revolution, giving birth to the Weimar Republic. But this republic was far from being stable. The new government faced fierce opposition from extremist groups on the left and right. Italy, too, struggled to find its place in the post-war order, with many feeling betrayed by the Treaty of Versailles. These internal struggles would eventually lead to the rise of fascism and, ultimately, World War II. As the 1920s gradually unfolded, Benito Mussolini's fascist movement seized the spotlight in Italy, wielding a totalitarian agenda. Democracy crumbled in the face of a nationalist force, as Mussolini envisioned a grand resurgence that centered around the birth of a new Roman Empire. But what was taking place in Italy wasn't as intense as what was unfolding in Germany. After the unsuccessful attempt to overthrow the German government in 1923, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor in 1933 through the appointment of Paul von Hindenburg and the Reichstag. After Hindenburg died in 1934, Hitler quickly declared himself Führer, abolishing democracy and initiating a racially motivated world order revision. His goals were simple: to rearm Germany and position it back as a powerful central power. Remember that the Treaty of Versailles had prohibited Germany from rearming and remilitarizing, but Adolf Hitler, not one to bend to rules, was not ready to abide by the principles of the treaty. Meanwhile, in France, tensions were rising. To secure her alliance with Italy, France allowed Italy a free hand in Ethiopia. All these further aggravated the situation. For the fear of Germany, the Stresa Front was formed by the United Kingdom, France, and Italy in April 1935 to serve as a check. However, the UK made a separate naval agreement with Germany in June, easing restrictions. The UK made this move as it perceived it would be a good way to tame Germany. Perceiving that everyone was trying so hard to either befriend Germany or cut deals, the Soviet Union, concerned about Germany's Eastern European goals, drafted a mutual assistance treaty with France. But did that work? Unfortunately, it didn't, as its effectiveness was hindered by the League of Nations bureaucracy. On the other hand, the United States was not willing to get involved in any of this, even though it was worried about global events. To make fewer enemies, it decided to pass the Neutrality Act in August 1935. Hitler, still hitting hard, remilitarized the Rhineland in March 1936 under the policy of appeasement it signed with the United Kingdom. Aggression heightened in March 1938 when Hitler annexed Austria and was met with minimal opposition. Encouraged, Hitler pushed forward to reclaim German claims on the Sudetenland, and this gave birth to the Munich Agreement in 1938, where the UK and France conceded territory against Czechoslovakia's wishes. Subsequently, Germany and Italy coerced Czechoslovakia into letting go of more territory to Hungary, and Poland annexed part of Czechoslovakia. As if that weren't enough, in March 1939, Germany invaded the rest rest of Czechoslovakia, splitting it into the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia and a pro-German client state, the Slovak Republic. Sensing the next country Hitler was going to target, the UK and France pledged support for Polish independence in case Germany tried anything funny, extending the same guarantee to Romania and Greece after Italy conquered Albania in April 1939. Recognizing that the big players were teaming up against them, Germany and Italy formalized their alliance with the Pact of Steel. As the tension thickened, Hitler pointed accusatory fingers at the United Kingdom and Poland, accusing them of encirclement. The next thing Hitler did was to renounce the agreements it had with the United Kingdom. And here the stage was set for a serious showdown. The Soviet Union, out of fear and confusion, decided to do what it thought was right by signing a non-aggression pact with Germany, throwing a shadow over the already fragile situation. What followed next was what the United Kingdom was trying to avoid. Germany's troops massed against the Polish border, and the Soviet pact cast a chilling veil. Hitler's order to attack Poland shocked everyone, but something happened. With the United Kingdom forging a mutual assistance pact with Poland, Italy, instead of supporting Germany, declared neutrality, and Hitler had no choice but to pause. In pleas for peace, Germany laid demands on Poland, fueling the situation. The Poles, unshaken, faced the rejection of German claims. The world was watching on the edge, unaware of the impending storm about to break. Then, on the fateful date of September 1, 1939, the stage was set ablaze. Germany, using staged incidents as a pretext, invaded Poland. The first clash erupted at Westerplatte, triggering an ultimatum from the United Kingdom. As the countdown to the conflict began, Britain and France declared war on Germany, followed by a cascade of nations. Hitler, not satisfied, ordered German troops to close the Warsaw suburbs on the 8th of September, marking the beginning of a high-stakes confrontation. The Polish counteroffensive bravely held off the German advance for days, creating a suspenseful pause. But their efforts were soon overridden and encircled by the relentless Wehrmacht. As the Polish army remnants fought their way through the occupied Warsaw, tensions heightened. Just when the dust seemed to settle, on September 17, 1939, the Soviet Union barged into the scene, leaving Poland caught in a web of uncertainty. On September 27th, the Warsaw garrison surrendered to the Germans, while the last significant operational unit of the Polish army bowed out on October 6th. The battlefield might have fallen silent, but Poland refused to yield. Instead, it went ahead to birth a government in exile. Little did the world know, Poland's story was far from over. Germany's annexation of Western Poland and the Soviet Union's claim to the east painted a fractured landscape. Meanwhile, Hitler boldly extended the message to the United Kingdom and France on October 6th, dictating that Poland's fate rested solely in the hands of Germany and the Soviet Union. At this point, one will think that Hitler was done. But the answer is no. April 1940 unleashed a new chapter as Germany swept into Denmark and Norway, driven by the need to safeguard iron ore shipments from Sweden. The rapid occupation of Denmark, coupled with Norway's fall within 2 months, despite Allied support, set the stage for another great shift. The aftershocks reverberated through British politics, forcing Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain's resignation and unveiling Winston Churchill as the new leader on May 10, 1940. You may think that with all these countries under Adolf Hitler's feet, he was going to withdraw. But what is it they say about greedy people? On the same day that Germany occupied Denmark and Norway, it invaded France and quickly broke through the neutral countries of Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Allied forces, expecting a slow attack through the heavily fortified Maginot Line, were caught off guard by the swift advance of the German army. Cut off by German forces near the town of Lille, they were forced to make a last stand. The Allies, unprepared for the speed and ferocity of the German attack, faced a crushing defeat. With a ticking clock and the fate of nations hanging in the balance, the United Kingdom managed a daring evacuation of Allied troops from the continent by early June. Yet the cost was high. Almost all their equipment had to be abandoned. June 10th marked Italy's entrance into the turmoil, declaring war on both France and the United Kingdom. The weakened French army now faced a dual threat as the Germans turned south. The world watched in awe as Paris succumbed on June 14th, paving the way for an agreement 8 days later. France, divided into occupation zones, presented an uneasy peace under the Vichy regime. officially neutral but leaning towards Germany. The drama continued as the United Kingdom, determined to disrupt the balance, launched an audacious attack on the French fleet on July 3rd. The world was once again left hanging on the edge, wondering how this web of alliances and betrayals would unfold in the chapters to come. But what was the United States doing while all this was going on, you may ask? Well, the United States remained on the edge, aiding China and the Western allies. The only thing the US did at this point was to amend the Neutrality Act it had previously signed to allow cash and carry for the Allies. But with Germany's attack on Paris in 1940, the United States knew something big was going to take place, and the next action it took was to build up its military. As the world spun in uncertainty, December 1940 brought Roosevelt's pointed accusations against Hitler. Casting shadows of world conquest, the United States from this moment became an arsenal of democracy. The stage was set for the Lend-Lease programs, with the United States providing military and humanitarian aid supporting the British war effort. Little did the world know that this support would extend a lifeline reaching even the incapacitated Soviet Union after Germany's invasion. Strategic planning quietly began for a full-scale attack against the looming German threat. Amidst the rising tensions, September 1940 saw the formal union of Japan, Italy, and Germany in the Tripartite Pact, an alliance shrouded in mystery and ambition. The pact's ambition was clear. Any attack on an Axis power meant war against all three. November brought expansion. Hungary, Slovakia, and Romania joining the Axis fold. Romania's gaze was set on reclaiming lost territories from the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Hitler's fear came true in 1940, as the UK, hopeful of American and Soviet support, faced a critical decision on July 31st. In order not to be caught off guard, it had to make plans to eliminate the Soviet Union and expand to Ukraine, the Baltic states, and Byelorusia. Amidst this, some Germans considered forming a Euro-Asian bloc against the British Empire. Negotiations in November 1940 explored the Soviet Union joining the Tripartite Pact. The decisive move came on December 18, 1940. Setting the stage for the impending invasion of the Soviet Union and a significant turn in the war. The next action from Germany, with the backing of Italy and Romania, was launching Operation Barbarossa against the Soviet Union on June 22, 1941, and this move changed the course of history. Germany broke the agreement it had with the Soviet Union, with claims that the Soviet Union had a sinister plot. During its attack on the Soviet Union, Germany found unexpected allies in Finland and Hungary. Their eyes were set on the Baltic region, Moscow, and Ukraine, with a grand plan to conquer the vast territory from the Caspian to the White Seas. Hitler's ambitions were nothing short of erasing the Soviet Union as a military force, eradicating communism, seizing land, and securing vital resources. As summer intensified, Axis forces made surprising advances into Soviet territory, causing significant losses in manpower and resources. In mid-August, the German Army High Command unexpectedly halted the operation. The weakened Army Group Center shifted its attention, allowing the 2nd Panzer Group to target central Ukraine and Leningrad. The attack on Kyiv led to the encirclement and occupation of 4 Soviet troops, setting the stage for further successes in Crimea and eastern Ukraine's industrial regions. While all these were taking place, the United States still didn't want to jump into the war right away. But things soon changed, and what was regarded as Europe's problem was now going to be a world problem. So what happened? On December 7, 1941, a day that will be remembered as Pearl Harbor Day, Japan surprisingly attacked a place called Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Pearl Harbor was a strategically important naval base for the United States. It was home to the U.S. Pacific Fleet, which was critical to the U.S. military presence in the Pacific. In addition, Pearl Harbor was a major base for refueling and resupplying ships, so by attacking Pearl Harbor, the Japanese were able to significantly weaken the U.S. military's ability to project power in the Pacific. The attack on Pearl Harbor came as a total shock to the U.S., and it caused a tremendous uproar. Lives were lost, and a lot of people were hurt. Americans were enraged and wanted to take immediate action against Japan, but there was a procedure for everything. The Congress had been the one stopping the U.S. from joining the war, but with this attack, President Roosevelt called for a declaration of war against Japan. and the U.S. Congress quickly approved it. Within hours of approval from the Congress, the U.S. officially entered World War II. The first thing the United States did after the attack on Pearl Harbor was to mobilize. The U.S. Pacific Fleet was badly damaged, but it was quickly rebuilt. The U.S. also began a massive shipbuilding program to replace its lost ships. In the months that followed, the U.S. and its allies began to turn the tide of the war in the Pacific. Battles like the Battle of Midway and the Guadalcanal Campaign marked key turning points in the Pacific theater. The U.S. began a strategy of island hopping across the Pacific. Instead of trying to capture every island in the Japanese-occupied Pacific, the U.S. military focused on capturing strategically important islands and cutting off Japanese supply lines. This strategy helped the U.S. advance closer to Japan, and by 1944, the U.S. was close to the Japanese home islands. But it didn't end there. Did you think Germany was going to let this opportunity to prove itself a powerful entity slide? I guess not. In support of their Japanese ally, Germany and Italy quickly declared war on the U.S. The U.S. responded by also declaring war on Germany and Italy, making the conflict truly global. This also brought the U.S. into the European theater of war. In 1942, the U.S. began to send troops to Europe, including to North Africa and Italy. The U.S. also began providing crucial supplies and equipment to its European allies under the Lend-Lease program. With the U.S. now a major player in the war, Allied strategy began to shift. In 1943, the Allies decided to focus on the defeat of Germany before Japan. The U.S. and its allies began to focus their efforts on opening a second front in Europe, which would take pressure off the Soviet Union, which was facing the brunt of the German military. On October 14, 1943, high above Nazi Germany, a fierce weaponry exchange unfolded between the U.S. 8th Air Force and the formidable German Luftwaffe. The U.S. Army Air Force launched a mission to bomb the ball bearing factories in Schweinfurt, Germany. The ball bearings were vital for the production of weapons and vehicles for the German war effort. The first raid on August 1943 had cost the U.S. Army Air Force many aircraft. A second raid in October was launched to further reduce the production of ball bearings, despite the losses from the previous attack. But would the second mission fare any better than the first? After the first Schweinfurt mission, the U.S. Air Force regrouped and refined its strategy. The next time the bombers returned to Schweinfurt, they were better prepared, with improved tactics and fighter support. But even with these improvements, the mission was a close call. The bombers faced fierce resistance from German defenses and suffered heavy losses. In the end, the mission was a success, but at a great cost. Sadly, the outcome of the flight was a loss of 26% of the 291 B-17 Flying Fortresses sent out for the mission. The toll extended beyond machinery, with 650 men, 22% of bomber crews, disappearing into the grim of the war. Even the American official history of the Army Air Forces reported that the losses were so staggering that the 8th Air Force temporarily surrendered air superiority over Germany, delaying their return to the target for a daunting 4 months. 4 months later, on December 20, 1943 precisely, the ye olde pub crew embarked on their maiden mission, directing their efforts towards crippling the Focke-Wulf 190 aircraft production facility in Bremen. Pre-mission briefings forewarned the 527th BS men of the daunting prospect of confronting hundreds of German fighters, with Bremen fortified by over 250 flak guns. Assigned to the dangerous Purple Heart corner on the edge of the formation, Brown's crew faced additional risks. Mechanical issues forced 3 bombers to turn back, prompting Brown to move his plane to the front. The bombing run commenced at 8,320 meters, with harsh conditions, including a temperature of negative 60 degrees Celsius. Accurate flak damaged the B-17, knocking out engines and compromising the aircraft's overall functionality. Separated from the formation, Brown's B-17 became weak and endured relentless attacks from over a dozen enemy fighters, including Messerschmitt Bf-109s and Focke-Wulf FW-190s. The aircraft sustained severe damage, losing crucial systems and weaponry. Multiple crew members were injured, some critically, with the tail gunner decapitated and the crew facing frozen equipment. Despite the grim situation, the crew grappled with the decision to bail out, realizing that one injured member couldn't safely land. Determined not to abandon their comrade, they pressed on. Germans on the ground, including then ace Franz Stigler, who was refueling and rearming at an airfield, saw Brown's damaged, straggling bomber. He quickly took off in his 50 caliber Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6. The M2 Browning had a machine gun bullet embedded in its radiator and quickly passed Brown's plane. Oh, this was going to be the last day for Brown and his crew, but something unexpected happened. Through openings torn in the harmed aircraft's airframe by fire and automatic rifle discharge, Stigler had the opportunity to see the harmed and vulnerable group. What he did next left the American pilot shocked. Instead of firing the down bomber of the enemy, Stigler came muttering what Brown couldn't grasp. Brown, on the other hand, had so much running through his mind that he couldn't tell why the German was taking so long to act. Stigler revealed later that at that point, he remembered what one of his chiefs from JG-27, Gustav Rodel, during his time battling in North Africa told him, "On the off chance that I at any point see or know about you taking shots at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you myself." Stigler said as long as he was concerned, it was very much like they were in a parachute. He saw them, and he was unable to destroy them. 2 times, Stigler attempted to convince Brown to set down his plane at a German runway and give up, or redirect to local impartial Sweden, where he and his team would get clinical treatment and be interned until the end of the conflict. Anyway, Brown and the team of the B-17 didn't have the slightest idea about the thing Stigler was attempting to mouth and signal to them, thus flew on. Stigler then flew close to Brown's plane in close development on the aircraft's portside wing, with the goal that the German enemy airplane units wouldn't target it, and accompanied the harmed B-17 across the coast until they arrived at untamed water. Brown, still uncertain of Stigler's aims, requested his partner with a heavy armament to focus his weapons on Stigler, yet not open shoot, to caution him off. Understanding the message and sure that the plane was at last out of German airspace, Stigler left with a salute. Brown figured out how to fly the 250 miles, 400 kilometers, across the North Ocean and landed his plane at RAF Fuming, home of the 448th Bomb Gathering. In the post-flight interviewing, he briefed his officials about how a German military pilot had let him go. He was warned not to reveal this information to the rest of the unit, as it could create a false sense of security when approaching enemy aircraft. If a downed pilot falsely signaled that he was friendly, other pilots might be tricked into believing it, only to be shot down. The danger was too great to risk. Meanwhile, Stigler soared as a jet fighter pilot in Jagdverband 44 until the war's end. Ye Olde Pub, however, left combat in April 1944, returning stateside, only to meet its demise in August 1945. Post-war, Brown ventured back to West Virginia, diving into college and later rejoining the U.S. Air Force until 1965. Transitioning into diplomacy, he voyaged to Laos and Vietnam as a State Department Foreign Service officer. In 1972, he retired, swapping the uniform for an inventor's hat in sunny Miami. On the flip side, Stigler carved a path to success in Canada after relocating in 1953, thriving as a businessman. Fast forward to 1986, Lieutenant Colonel Brown found himself addressing a gathering of the Eagles in Alabama. When asked if he had any memories of World War II missions, he recounted the Bf-109 escort tale. After the gathering, he set out on a quest to locate the mysterious German pilot. Despite 4 years of fruitless searches, Brown penned a letter to a Combat Pilot Association. Soon, a response arrived from Stigler, then residing in Canada. "I was the one," the letter boldly declared. A phone call followed, and Stigler's vivid description confirmed the wartime connection. Stigler later said that reuniting with Brown was one of the most meaningful experiences of his life. He spoke of their first meeting as an encounter between enemies who had turned into friends. He said it was an honor to meet a man who decades before had shown him such mercy and compassion. For Brown, the experience was equally powerful. He described their reunion as the beginning of a beautiful friendship. From 1990 to 2008, the friendship between Charlie Brown and Franz Stigler blossomed, enduring until their simultaneous passings in 2008. The story of Brown and Stigler offers a powerful lesson in the power of compassion. Even during a brutal war, Stigler chose to show mercy and humanity to his enemy. This act of compassion had a profound impact on both men and the world around them. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there is still room for empathy and understanding. Now, back to the question I asked at the beginning of this video. What would you do if you were faced with a similar choice? Would you follow the orders to destroy an obvious enemy, or follow your conscience? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a thumbs up, and for more exciting videos like this, subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.